So House Speaker Mike Johnson now has a Christian nationalist flag sitting right outside of his office. This flag was first flown during the Revolutionary War, but in recent years it has become adopted by a certain sect of Christianity known as the New Apostolic Reformation. Now, what the New Apostolic Reformation believes is that Christianity should control all aspects of American government and all aspects of the American society. Now, that is a direct violation of the separation of church and state. But there's still going to be people out there that's going to say, well, man, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, the guy's a Christian. You know, the Bible is his worldview. Why can't he have a Christian flag sitting outside of his office? Well, first of all, I could do a whole lot of whataboutisms. I could say, well, what if it was a gay speaker who had a pride flag sitting outside of his office? How would that make you feel? Or if it was a Muslim American speaker that had some sort of Islamic flag sitting outside of his office, how would that make you feel? Or if it was some sort of secular speaker who had a satanic flag sitting outside of his office, how would that make you feel? But I'm sure that still wouldn't get through. And I'm sure I could go back and I could quote the Founding Fathers. I could quote John Adams when he said this would be the best of all possible worlds if there was no religion in it. George Washington said the United States of America should have a foundation free from influence of the clergy. Thomas Jefferson said Christianity neither is nor was part of common law. And James Madison said, the purpose of the separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe with blood for centuries. I could point to those things, and I'm sure you guys would just find some quotes where they believed in God, and we would sit here and go around in circles all day. And I could always point out to you that In God We Trust wasn't put on the coins until 1864, and it wasn't put on the paper money until 1957. I could point out that the original Pledge of Allegiance did not have one nation under God in it until 1954. And that wouldn't matter because you would still find a way to say, yeah, well, I don't get what the big deal is. So I'm going to come at you from a completely different angle of thought. For everyone out there that sees that flag outside Mike Johnson's office and says, no big deal. Okay, you're a believer, right? You're a Christian. You have your own interpretation of the Bible. How many times have you sat in church listening to your minister, and there were certain parts of his sermon that you interpreted differently? And you went home and you said to your family, I always interpreted it to mean this. The last church I attended had a father-son duo preachers, and they both disagreed on the end times. If they preached a sermon, he would say, my son doesn't agree with me, but this is what I think is going to happen in the last days. And the son would get up and he'd say, Dad, I know you're not agree with what I'm about to say. I don't agree with what you're going to say. This is what I think is going to be in the end times. So the Bible is open for interpretation. I mean, surely to goodness we can all agree on that. Whether you're the hardest core believer or hardest core non-believer, at the end of the day, it's open for interpretation, and we should be able to agree on that much because of all the different denominations of Christianity that there are and all the different churches that are in your hometown. How many churches do you drive by on a daily basis that has a different label over the door? So the Bible is open to interpretation. Now stop and think for a minute. You give a certain sect of Christianity full control over your government and full control over every aspect of American society. And suddenly you could be painted in a corner where they're coming after you and saying, you have to stop doing this or you have to stop doing that. And when you say, why? They're going to say to you, well, because my Christianity says so. And because you put me in power, you voted me in, you saw nothing wrong with it. That's what people really need to stop and think about before they start giving these people all of this power. Before you start giving people all this power, ask yourself, do you trust their interpretation of your brand of Christianity? Because you could one day open up a door to where your life is now being controlled by an interpretation of it that you yourself don't agree with. And to the person that says, Brando, it sure is beautiful where you live. Does it ever rain? It's beginning to rain. So there's that. But that's one of those things that people need to think on a whole lot harder. When you say, no big deal, let Christians have it. My question would be, which ones? Are you going to be okay with the people who have a different worldview than you, controlling every single aspect of your life? Just think on it.